What's the difference between businesses that scale and those that stay stuck? Today's guest reveals a simple principle that's come from just talking about his dreams to actually running a multi location business. Today, I have the privilege of talking with Ivan Ankwatsa, owner of Pryde Athletics and Physical Therapy. Let's get into it. So, I want to start with what motivated you back in the early stages before you were ever a business owner to take this journey of entrepreneurship. Walk me through that thought process.
Honestly, I think when I was a kid, I remember my mom fell and broke her hand, and you know, my mom used to do a lot for us, and obviously the cooking, the cleaning. She would work 3, 4 jobs just to make ends meet, and as she was healing, like her hand would always be sore, and so. We'd watch TV or something like that, and I was like, "Mom, let me massage your hand," Or when she was, still had the cast, I would take the little swab and kind of just massage if there was different areas that she was getting itches and stuff like that. And I don't know, it all started massaging my mom's hand, like as it was healing after it came out of the cast. Um, but I remember what she used to say to me. She said, "One day you're gonna heal people," you know, and I've never forgotten that. So we used to talk about that and think about it, and then I came up with this urge to really look into quotes, and I started searching quotes to heal, and I came up with this quote, or came across this quote by Edison, and it was about the doctor of the future. So the doctor of the future will give no medicine and will interest his or her patients in the proper nutrition, care of the frame, yada, yada, yada. So it was butchered just now, but it in that space. Um, so I started really wasting a lot of time thinking about like what the future is and how medicine was going to grow to help people heal. And then what medicine wasn't doing to help people heal. And it was really intriguing that Edison told everybody what it should have been. Medicine should encompass nutrition, proper care of the frame, working out, and should be less rooted in pharmaceuticals, right? Proper care. And that's kind of what we've set out here to do. And eventually, we're going to have that quote in our forever building, because that's where it all started, is, taking care of my mom and looking up quotes, um, and started really dreaming about the disservice of the current medical system, and where we can go to make it better.
That's amazing that your mom spoke that truth into you, just that positive affirmation that one day you will heal people.
Yeah, no, it was really good because it wasn't necessarily like, oh wow, you're good at this or that or this and that. She was always challenging, and I think as a kid you look back and go, well, my mom didn't love me, or my mom never spoke truth to power. But there were moments often when I look back and when I actually deal with my own kids, and kind of juxtapose my upbringing and their upbringing. She never sugarcoated things. And it was, as hey, you can do this if you try. You will succeed if you try. The problem then is I wasn't doing a lot of trying, but here we are.
Well, you're taking action now and you're helping a lot of people. And to that point, what do you feel like your client's biggest frustration is before walking through the doors? What are they looking for?
I think it's that thought that they've done everything that their physician has told them to do. They've had surgeries, they've taken medicines, but they feel miserable still. And so there's feeling that the medical system wasn't designed for people to actually get better, and they start looking for alternatives. So I think we're people's last resort a lot of times, and we look to really think outside the box. Um, and the joy of thinking outside the box creates a scenario where you're really seeing people for them as the individual, and not a protocol to follow, right? So people that break their hips come all different shapes, sizes, heights, and degrees of severity when it comes to that specific injury. And if we see them for the individual, based on their individual circumstances, even when it comes down to like race and origin, it informs you on how to treat that individual and to create the perfect plan for that person to heal that might not be in the traditional sense of medicine. So we're really looking to honestly see people for who they are, and then cultivate a solution for them based on the individuality of their genome.
So you do athletic training and physical therapy. What in your mind stands out as one of the biggest success stories? Maybe it was a client who came in with whatever problem, and maybe over a number of months or even years, you've seen a significant change that's improved their quality of life.
I wouldn't even say it as tangible results physically. I think it's in the mind, right? It's changing someone's mind to see, their strengths for what they are. Getting people to believe in themselves. Um, but then that quest for knowledge. I think we come in here and we ask ourselves physically, can I get stronger? But mentally, can I get stronger? Teaching people to endure, to have long suffering, to understand that progress, Rome wasn't built overnight, neither were the pyramids. And if you have spent 30 years living healthy or unhealthy rather, well, it's going to take more than, 3 months to get healthy. Um, and so I think the biggest, most successful story is how people look at themselves, how they perceive and metabolize information that is about, wellness. Um, in that we market to women caloric restrictions, and if you ask a room full of women what they do if they want to lose weight, most of them are going to say starve, don't eat, elliptical. But we market health and wellness to men differently because men bulk and eat and grow their bodies. But when you ask women who loses weight faster, they'll say a man does. When you ask them why, they'll say because they have more testosterone, more muscle, But when you open up their minds and say, hey, what if men and women lost weight at the same ratio, but the input is different? Women don't eat and they do elliptical stuff. Men eat a lot, strength train, but yet change their composition quicker. All of a sudden, this light goes on, right? So everything that I've ever known might be false. That's scary for people. But when you teach people to really start challenging their assumptions, to open up their mind, and you arm them with the knowledge, I think the greatest success that we have for people is to think for yourself, to question everything all the time. Because sometimes in the ever-changing world of science, things that we know to be true today might not be true tomorrow. But then also things that are good for me might not be good for you. And it's teach people to really seek that for themselves, the knowledge, the confidence to really, like, you know, force us as practitioners to give them what they need, right? And hold us to account and ask questions and challenge us and research and look for counter thoughts to what we're selling, because ultimately that knowledge is what is going to be the most freeing thing and really create the most success. Because the moment someone leaves these walls, they shouldn't be tied to me, someone that's selling health and fitness or wellness. As a client here for a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, when you stop coming here, I hope that you can continue it. And honestly, I really hope that after a year, most people just like my personality, and that's why they come here. But the reality is we're rooted in that education component of how to make people well, get them curious about their longevity, and then, get them really, empowered to do it for themselves.
Way back when I first met you, some of the stuff I was going through, I really needed your friendship. And at that time, we shared a lot about our dreams for the future. And over the years, we've watched each other follow those dreams. Someone walks into this building and they see you as a successful business owner and everything's going great. But I know it wasn't easy and it didn't happen by accident. What did it take for you to get here?
Um, my village. Yeah. And it's easy to come in here and go, wow, man, like this is great, you know. But I think I'd be remiss if I didn't appreciate, where I came from and then my village. Like, I know you spoke about, you know, what it meant for us to connect, to meet, to grow up. But the joy of all of this is you knew me when it was an idea, when it was two kids talking trash about what they could become. Um, and I think that you came into my life at a very particular time, and I don't think you know how much I really needed you then. Um, and I think, you, your family, your brothers, I think you saved my life, honestly, because I was in a really dark place. Nothing was going right. You know, life was challenging. It was dead end after dead end, roadblocks after roadblocks. But like, um, I mean, and there you guys were. I mean, you guys took me in. You, your brothers, your mom and dad, your sisters. Like, it was like joy every time I spent time with you guys. Like, I can remember conversations with your dad about just, the measure of a man. He was one of the first people, he and Mr. Thompson, to really say, who could you become, right? I think up until that point, I had a fear of not becoming someone, but I never really thought about who I could become. It was this anxious, if I don't do X, Y, and Z, I'll never be anyone. I'll never be something. And Suresh Joshua showed me that I could, with his inquisitive questions that dug at your soul. You know, um, Larry Thompson, you know, showed me how to be a good dad when I didn't have a father. Um, how to speak kindly, how to be present. And so a lot of times, people ask, well, where did you get all these things and this and that? Like, but that's my culture. That's my village. That's where I came from. All these people are parts of me and have molded me. And so when we talk about culture and business and growth, it really starts from there. And I think nothing here is because of me in a way. It's because of those who've believed in me and this constant like desire not to let them down. And obviously, like it goes back to even like my mom's sacrifice to come to this country to really give it a try as a 26-year-old kid with two kids, to jump on a plane and said, "Hey, got a one-way ticket," and so I don't think I would, if I didn't fight for every inch, or if I didn't go at it with such passion or purpose or focus or determination, I think you kind of you're not honoring those sacrifices.
So, from that village that formed you, what are some core principles you hold, or maybe values you hold as an individual, that make your approach to business unique, or that maybe guides the way you do business?
I think it's a biblical principle. I think I haven't read the Bible in a long time. Well, I put my hand on it, praying. No, I'm kidding. Come as you are. I think when it comes to staff, I can teach you, you know, anything, but come as you are, you, the person. Like, I'm interested in you, your quality, your humanity, your, how you talk to other people, how you treat other people, how you see other people with light, with positive enthusiasm. Um, that is like what our culture is about, come as you are, the patient who's traveled to many clinics and has paid extensive, you know, for extensive services and therapies, and has tried out, but comes as a last resort here so that we can try to help them. And we see them as the human they are. We see their pain. We see their struggle. It's, a young lady who is looking for an opportunity to either work here, a young man who's, brilliant but struggling. Our clients reaching out and saying, "Hey, my kid's going through a rough patch. Can you just talk to them?" Um, so much of this is like that church, and we want people to come broken, to come, as they are. Not that we can fix them, I think is so we can remind them of who they are. I think often you get into this space where you're so focused on what you have to do, and when you look behind, it's only to see all the things you didn't do, the things you could have become, um, the issues, the problems, but you forget to really like adjust the rearview mirror and like appreciate the things that you've overcome, right? And that's what we remind people of every day. That's our culture. It's like, hey, you know what? Yeah, the journey ahead sucks. It's tough. But you're 56 and you've raised 3 kids, you might have had a miscarriage and, your husband's got some health issues, but you guys survived all of that. And despite all the adversity, you're still happy. And remember who you are. You've come a long way. And the road back there is well traveled. The road ahead can be optimistic. So giving people value, validation, giving people the opportunity to really see, the goodness, the power, and like really what's intended for them is like, I think that thing that is so awesome about our culture, our business. We do it with our clients. We do it with our employees. I try to be kind and do it with myself from time to time, but it's like there's this piece, I think, in all of our humanities that wants people to see us as we truly are. And all of us have it and all of us need it. And in that affirmation, we can then create like this foundation to really do amazing things. But without it, it's like our spirits and our souls can die, right? But when you give this to someone in a healing component, it's almost like it's miraculous, what that does for people, So that's the one thing that I think really is, our culture here. And it's not even business, man. It's faith, it's belief, it's the opportunity to see people. The most amazing thing that I think I've ever witnessed here is working with a man who's been in a wheelchair all his life. And we stood him up and just like tears are running down his face, And he looks at me and says, "This is the first time that I've looked another man in the eyes standing up in 17 years." And like, it was gut wrenching, But what I do know is how people talk to people in wheelchairs and they look down on them and they stand over them and, or they talk to them like, "Hey, buddy," It's like, well, no, this person fought in a war for this country, right? This person served valiantly. And if they can only remember all that they've been through, all that they've gave, all that they've sacrificed, right? We have holidays for this stuff, but we treat people like, they're worthless. It's like, yeah, on one day, remember the veterans or something like that. But then it's like on a day-to-day basis, there isn't that value of really honoring people. And I think, we honor people well here, and it's pretty fun.
So let's say someone wants to follow in your shoes. What can you share with them? Maybe one thing they should do, one mindset they should have to get to where you're at.
Ooh. There's a lot of things that come to mind. But they're just one simple value, and is to just challenge your assumptions. What you know today might not be true tomorrow. And being vulnerable enough to say, you know what? I don't know it all. I'll try, but I don't. And I think that simple thing then opens your mind up to be curious about so many other things, What I know today might not be true about that person, right? Well, then I want to give them a chance. perspective and framing. And I think we don't understand a lot of things going through life. But sometimes if you take a step back and you give things perspective, you give things context, you give things like the air to breathe, and you give yourself the opportunity to really understand things, um, generally you come away thinking a whole lot different than you first started. So in business, if you want to succeed, you have to challenge your assumptions. Well, why? Well, because your clientele changes, right? Time changes. The need changes. The niche changes. And if you don't adapt, well, you'll die, right? And if you're challenging your assumptions, you know, the ever changing waves of business won't swallow you up. Um, you give yourself a fighting chance. I think a lot of times when people think they know it all, well, they become the taxi service in the land of Uber, um, you know, and that's, I think, the cool thing about like, COVID and navigating COVID as a business owner. It What happened during COVID wasn't unprecedented, and I don't know where I heard this before. But this guy was talking about, just the challenges of business, right? Um, the only difference with COVID is COVID equalized everyone to go through the same thing at the same exact time, right? Companies over the history have always had to adapt, but you can only adapt well, pivot based on how you view the landscape, right? So if you're curious, you're going to do well. If you challenge your assumptions, you're going to be well. If the marketing strategy doesn't work, well, what are you doing wrong? Look at it a different way, measure it again. Um, and that's something that's going to help people grow.
I want to talk about the mission behind the mission. What impact do you hope to leave in this world?
I want kids like me to be able to see the work that we've done and have hope in their ability to succeed. If he can do it, I can do it too. What I want to leave behind is a legacy piece to say, hey, and I don't know if I can ever accomplish it in my lifetime, but man, if we can change our conversation around healthcare, if we can interest people in, living quality lives, like when I die, I just want to fall off a cliff. You know what I mean? I don't want to be like, it's just gotta be bloop, like that, the end, end of story, like curtain fall, like, but because I want to live well, and I think everybody deserves that. But while we're here, like the meaning of why we're doing what we're doing, like that old saying, we didn't come this far just to come this far. It's like, what are you going to accomplish? So there comes that legacy piece of, man, so we have this business, we might have a megaphone, we're going to grow. We're going to try to open multiple locations. We're going to flip it on its head, create this ecosystem that, shows people that preventive medicine is the way to go. You know, um, I don't believe that there's a shortage of physicians in this country, right? That's what everybody wants to talk about. I don't believe that there's a shortage of physical therapists. There's never a shortage of nurses. There's just an overabundance of sick people. You know, universal healthcare can work if the population is healthy, because then there's not a choke point at the door to your physicians. So we're on this pursuit to really flip traditional medicine and the ecosystem of how people consume wellness. And we want to flip it into a proactive manner. We want to change how people see the healthcare system. I don't want you to think, in case I get sick, I want you to think I don't have to get sick, right? The way to healthcare reform isn't rooted in legislative bodies. It's not rooted in the pharmaceutical companies. Honestly, it's not even with your doctor. It's the fact that if you take care of your body, if you eat the right way, if you exercise, if you stretch, if you sleep well, if you mitigate the stress in your life, if you tune out of the social medias, if you have a good friend group, maybe a church group, have people that you can lean on, right? invest in your mental health. Get, I wouldn't say, weekly massages, but like every 2 weeks, um, you can live a really, really, really great life. And so that's the mission, is really to get people to understand that how they metabolize, the pursuit of longevity is not in the control of other people per se, but more so in their control, and getting them to believe in themselves, and then giving them the information. So a lot of what we do is more education, right? So when light bulbs turn on and you see the light in people's eyes and they go, wow, I can do it. But like, yeah, you can do it. And those are the things that we're going for. It's not even a monetary thing anymore. We want to save people's lives, because there are many people that walk through those doors that are on their last, bit of faith, and, they get physically stronger and they start believing in themselves. And so that's like the seriousness of what we're taking it with, is like, we have the ability, though we're small now, to change people's lives. When we get bigger, we want to change more lives. The mission doesn't change. It's all rooted in, in adding the quality to people's lives. And then we see the joy, man, when people are just living their intended life. It's just fulfilling, So if I never make any other dollar, that's okay, It's just, I don't know, my heart's full. So the goal is obviously, yeah, I want to feed my kids, all those things. But like, I don't ever want my kids to go, wow, man, your dad earned a lot of money in his life. The measure of success is your dad changed a lot of lives. And that's what we're after.